19. For an hour, tied up with his profound reaction to his father's death, the magnificent facade of the homeland, the harbor of New York, seemed all sad and glorious to Dick, but once ashore the feeling vanished, nor did he find it again in the streets or the hotels or the trains that bore him first to Buffalo, and then south to Virginia with his father's body. Only as the local train shambled into the low-forested clayland of Westmoreland County, did he feel once more identified with his surroundings. At the station he saw a star he knew, and a cold moon bright over Chesapeake Bay. He heard the rasping wheels of buckboards turning, the lovely fatuous voices, the sound of sluggish primeval rivers flowing softly under soft Indian names. Next day at the churchyard his father was laid among 100 divers, Dorseys, and hunters. It was very friendly leaving him there with all his relations around him. Flowers were scattered on the brown unsettled earth. Dick had no more ties here now and did not believe he would come back. He knelt on the hard soil. These dead, he knew them all, their weather-beaten faces with blue flashing eyes, the spare violent bodies, the souls made of new earth in the forest-heavy darkness of the 17th century. Goodbye, my father, goodbye, all my fathers. On the long-roofed steamship piers one is in a country that is no longer here and not yet there. The hazy yellow vault is full of echoing shouts. There are the rumble of trucks and the clump of trunks, the strident chatter of cranes, the first salt smell of the sea. One hurries through, even though there's time, the past, the continent, is behind, the future is the glowing mouth in the side of the ship, the dim, turbulent alley is too confusedly the present. Up the gangplank and the vision of the world adjusts itself, narrows. One is a citizen of a commonwealth smaller than Andorra, no longer sure of anything. The men at the purser's desk are as oddly shaped as the cabins, disdainful are the eyes of voyagers and their friends. Next the loud mournful whistles, the portentous vibration and the boat, the human idea, is in motion. The pier and its faces slide by and for a moment the boat as a piece accidentally split off from them, the faces become remote, voiceless, the pier is one of many blurs along the waterfront. The harbor flows swiftly toward the sea. With it flowed Albert McKisco, labeled by the newspapers as its most precious cargo. McKisco was having a vogue. His novels were pastiches of the work of the best people of his time, a feat not to be disparaged, and in addition he possessed a gift for softening and debasing what he borrowed, so that many readers were charmed by the ease with which they could follow him. Success had improved him and humbled him. He was no fool about his capacities, he realized that he possessed more vitality than many men of superior talent, and he was resolved to enjoy the success he had earned. "I've done nothing yet," he would say. "I don't think I've got any real genius. But if I keep trying I may write a good book." Fine dives have been made from flimsier springboards. The innumerable snubs of the past were forgotten. Indeed, his success was founded psychologically upon his duel with Tommy Barbin, upon the basis of which, as it withered in his memory, he had created, afresh, a new self-respect. Spotting Dick Diver the second day out, he eyed him tentatively, then introduced himself in a friendly way and sat down. Dick laid aside his reading and, after the few minutes that it took to realize the change in McKisco, the disappearance of the man's annoying sense of inferiority, found himself pleased to talk to him. McKisco was well informed on a range of subjects wider than Goethe's. It was interesting to listen to the innumerable facile combinations that he referred to as his opinions. They struck up an acquaintance, and Dick had several meals with them. The McKiscos had been invited to sit at the captain's table, but with nascent snobbery they told Dick that they couldn't stand that bunch. Violet was very grand now, decked out by the grand couturières, charmed about the little discoveries that well-bred girls make in their teens. She could, indeed, have learned them from her mother in Boise, but her soul was born dismally in the small movie houses of Idaho, and she had had no time for her mother. Now she belonged, together with several million other people, and she was happy, though her husband still shushed her when she grew violently naive. The McKiscos got off at Gibraltar. Next evening in Naples Dick picked up a lost and miserable family of 2 girls and their mother in the bus from the hotel to the station. He had seen them on the ship. An overwhelming desire to help, or to be admired, came over him. He showed them fragments of gaiety, tentatively he bought them wine, with pleasure saw them begin to regain their proper egotism. He pretended they were this and that, and falling in with his own plot, and drinking too much to sustain the illusion, and all this time the women thought only that this was a windfall from heaven. He withdrew from them as the night waned and the train rocked and snorted at Casino and Frosinone. After weird American partings in the station at Rome, Dick went to the Hotel Quirinal, somewhat exhausted. At the desk he suddenly stared and upped his head. As if a drink were acting on him, warming the lining of his stomach, throwing a flush up into his brain, he saw the person he had come to see, the person for whom he had made the Mediterranean crossing. Simultaneously Rosemary saw him, acknowledging him before placing him. She looked back startled, and, leaving the girl she was with, she hurried over. Holding himself erect, holding his breath, Dick turned to her. As she came across the lobby, her beauty all groomed, like a young horse dosed with black seed oil, and hoops varnished, shocked him awake, but it all came too quick for him to do anything except conceal his fatigue as best he could. To meet her starry-eyed confidence he mustered an insincere pantomime implying, "You would turn up here, of all the people in the world." Her gloved hands closed over his on the desk. "Dick, we're making the grandeur that was Rome, at least we think we are, we may quit any day." He looked at her hard, trying to make her a little self-conscious, so that she would observe less closely his unshaven face, his crumpled and slept-in collar. Fortunately, she was in a hurry. "We begin early because the mists rise at 11, phone me at 2. In his room Dick collected his faculties. He left a call for noon, stripped off his clothes and dove literally into a heavy sleep. He slept over the phone call but awoke at 2, refreshed. Unpacking his bag, he sent out suits and laundry. He shaved, lay for half an hour in a warm bath and had breakfast. The sun had dipped into the Via Nazionale and he let it through the portieres with a jingling of old brass rings. Waiting for a suit to be pressed, he discovered from the Corriere della Sera that una novella di Sinclair Lewis Wall Street nella quale l'autore analisa la vita sociale di una piccola città americana. Then he tried to think about Rosemary. At first he thought nothing. She was young and magnetic, but so was Topsy. He guessed that she had had lovers and had loved them in the last 4 years. Well, you never knew exactly how much space you occupied in people's lives. Yet from this fog his affection emerged. The best contacts are when one knows the obstacles and still wants to preserve a relation. The past drifted back and he wanted to hold her eloquent giving of herself in its precious shell, till he enclosed it, till it no longer existed outside him. He tried to collect all that might attract her. It was less than it had been 4 years ago. 18 might look at 34 through a rising mist of adolescence, but 22 would see 38 with discerning clarity. Moreover, Dick had been at an emotional peak at the time of the previous encounter. Since then there had been a lesion of enthusiasm. When the valet returned he put on a white shirt and collar and a black tie with a pearl. The cords of his reading glasses passed through another pearl of the same size that swung a casual inch below. After sleep, his face had resumed the ruddy brown of many Riviera summers, and to limber himself up he stood on his hands on a chair until his fountain pen and coins fell out. At 3 he called Rosemary and was bidden to come up. Momentarily dizzy from his acrobatics, he stopped in the bar for a gin and tonic. "Hi, Dr. Diver." Only because of Rosemary's presence in the hotel did Dick place the man immediately as Collis Clay. He had his old confidence and an air of prosperity and big sudden jowls. "Do you know Rosemary's here?" Collis asked. "I ran into her. I was in Florence and I heard she was here so I came down last week. You'd never know Mama's little girl." He modified the remark, "I mean she was so carefully brought up and now she's a woman of the world, if you know what I mean. Believe me, has she got some of these Roman boys tied up in bags." "And how? You studying in Florence?" "Me? Sure, I'm studying architecture there. I go back Sunday, I'm staying for the races." With difficulty Dick restrained him from adding the drink to the account he carried in the bar, like a stock market report.